I woke up at 3 in the morning to an empty bed. The sheets beside me were cold. My girlfriend Madison was gone without a word. I sent her a simple text asking where she was because I was worried. What I got back was not an answer. She called me screaming that I was too clingy and needed to give her space. In that moment, everything I believed about our 2-year relationship shattered into pieces. What happened next changed my life forever. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how one question at 3 in the morning led me to pack my bags, disappear to another state, and what happened when she finally found me 3 years later. My name is Peter. I was 28 years old and working as a software developer at a tech company in Chicago. I had always been the kind of guy who believed in loyalty, honesty, and putting everything into the people I loved. Maybe that came from watching my parents go through a painful divorce when I was just 10 years old. I saw what happened when two people stopped caring about each other, and I promised myself I would never let that happen in my own relationships. I was not rich by any means. I had a small apartment in a decent neighborhood, a car I was still paying off, and a steady job that paid the bills. But I had something more valuable than money. I had hope. I believed that if I found the right person and gave them my whole heart, we could build something beautiful together. Then I met Madison. It was a rainy Tuesday morning in October. I was running late for work and ducked into a coffee shop near my office to escape the downpour. That is when I saw her standing by the door, looking out at the rain with frustration written all over her face. She had long brown hair that fell past her shoulders and the kind of smile that could light up a room. She was wearing a gray blazer and holding a laptop bag, clearly on her way to work too. I noticed she did not have an umbrella, neither did I, but I had grabbed a newspaper from the stand outside. It was not much, but it was something. I walked over and offered to share it with her until the rain let up. She laughed and said it was the most creative pickup line she had ever heard. I told her it was not a line, just common decency. That made her laugh even harder. We ended up talking for almost an hour while the rain poured outside. Her name was Madison. She was 26, and she worked at a marketing firm a few blocks away. She had moved to Chicago from a small town in Indiana 2 years earlier, chasing bigger dreams and better opportunities. I liked how ambitious she was. I liked how her eyes crinkled when she smiled. I liked everything about her. I asked for her number before we parted ways. She gave it to me without hesitation. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. We talked for 3 hours straight, and it felt like we had known each other for years. Our second date was a walk through Millennium Park where we watched the sunset reflect off the bean. By our third date, I knew I was falling for her. Madison told me she had never met anyone as genuine as me. She said most guys she dated were either trying too hard to impress her or did not try at all. But I was different. I listened when she talked. I remembered the little things she mentioned. I made her feel seen. 6 months after our first meeting at that coffee shop, Madison moved into my apartment. It was a small space, but we made it ours. We bought plants together and named them. We picked out throw pillows and argued over which color looked best with the couch. We cooked dinner together every night, taking turns choosing the recipes. Those first few months of living together were the happiest of my life. Madison would wake up early to make coffee before I headed to work. She would leave little notes in my lunchbox with messages like, "Have a great day," or "Thinking of you." I would come home to find her curled up on the couch waiting to hear about my day. We would fall asleep tangled together, and I would think to myself that this was it. This was the life I had always wanted. I started saving money for an engagement ring. I wanted to propose on our 2-year anniversary. I had it all planned out. A nice dinner, a walk along the lakefront, and then I would get down on one knee and ask her to spend the rest of her life with me. I was so sure she would say yes. I introduced Madison to my mother about 8 months into our relationship. Mom had been hesitant about meeting her at first. After the divorce, she became protective of me, always worried that I would end up hurt like she had been. But after spending just one afternoon with Madison, Mom pulled me aside and said she approved. She said Madison looked at me like I was the only person in the room. That meant everything to me. Madison and I talked about our future constantly. We discussed buying a house in the suburbs, getting a dog, maybe having 2 kids someday. She wanted a boy and a girl. I just wanted healthy and happy. We would lay in bed at night whispering about the life we would build together, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. But somewhere around the 18-month mark, things started to shift. At first, the changes were small. Madison started coming home from work later than usual. She said her company had landed a big client and everyone was putting in extra hours. I understood. Work gets busy sometimes. I told her I was proud of her and that I would handle dinner on the nights she came home late. Then I noticed her phone habits changed. She used to leave her phone on the coffee table or the kitchen counter without a second thought. Now, it was always face down, always on silent. She would grab it quickly whenever a notification came through, glancing at the screen before tucking it away. One evening, I saw her step out onto the balcony to take a call. She said it was just a coworker asking about a project. But she was out there for almost 30 minutes, and when she came back inside, her cheeks were flushed and she avoided my eyes. I started noticing other things too. The little notes in my lunchbox stopped appearing. When I would reach for her hand while we watched television, she would pull away after a few seconds, saying she was too warm. The woman who used to fall asleep in my arms now slept with her back to me, a pillow wedged between us like a wall. I told myself I was overthinking. Madison was stressed. Work was demanding. Every relationship goes through phases where the spark dims a little. I just needed to be patient and supportive. I tried harder to show her I cared. I bought her flowers on random Tuesdays. I ran her baths after long days. I offered to give her shoulder massages when she complained about tension, but instead of appreciating my efforts, Madison seemed annoyed by them. She would look at the flowers and sigh, saying I did not need to spend money on things like that. She would decline the baths, saying she just wanted to go to bed. When I tried to massage her shoulders, she would shrug me off after a minute, saying it was too much. "You do not have to do all this," she told me one night, exasperation in her voice. "It is too much, Peter. Just relax." I did not understand. How could loving someone be too much? Madison started going out more. She called them girls' nights with her coworkers. At first, it was once a week on Friday evenings. Then it became twice a week, sometimes 3 times. She would leave the apartment around 8 in the evening, dressed up more than usual, and come home well after midnight. Sometimes it was 1 in the morning, sometimes 2. She always smelled different when she got back, a perfume that was not hers lingering on her clothes. The faint scent of cigarette smoke, even though none of her friends smoked. I asked her about it once, just casually, trying not to sound accusatory. I asked which bar they were going to and if she was having fun. She snapped at me, saying I didn't need to keep tabs on her every move. She said she was a grown woman who could take care of herself. "I was just asking," I said quietly. "I like hearing about your night." She rolled her eyes and went to take a shower without another word. One Friday night, I offered to pick her up from wherever she was so she would not have to take an Uber home so late. I thought I was being considerate. Madison looked at me like I had suggested something offensive. "I'm not a child, Peter. I can get myself home. Stop being so overbearing." That word stung. Overbearing. I was just trying to make sure she was safe. Since when did that become a crime? I noticed she was not interested in being close to me anymore. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she always had an excuse. She was tired. She had a headache. She had an early meeting. After a while, I stopped trying because the rejection hurt too much. One afternoon, while Madison was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I was not trying to snoop. I was just walking past and glanced down instinctively. The notification showed a text from a number that was not saved in her contacts. The preview read, "Last night was amazing. Cannot wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking. I stood there staring at those words, trying to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a coworker talking about a successful presentation. Maybe it was a friend she had not saved yet. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But deep down I knew. I knew something was wrong. I just was not ready to face it. I did not confront her. I was scared of what I might hear. I was scared that if I pulled at this thread, everything would unravel. So I buried my suspicions and kept pretending everything was fine. Our 2-year anniversary was approaching. I had been planning a special dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. I made reservations weeks in advance and even arranged for a special dessert with "Happy Anniversary" written in chocolate on the plate. I still had that engagement ring hidden in my sock drawer, but I had stopped thinking about proposing. Something told me the timing was not right anymore. The day of our anniversary, Madison called me at work to say she could not make dinner. An emergency had come up at her office. A client needed something urgently and she had to stay late. She promised we would celebrate the next weekend instead. I was disappointed, but I understood. Work emergencies happen. I canceled the reservation and decided to surprise her with flowers at her office instead. I figured if we could not have dinner, at least I could see her for a few minutes and give her something to brighten her stressful night. I drove to her office building around 7:30 in the evening. When I got there, the lobby was dark. The security guard told me everyone from her floor had left hours ago. There was no emergency. There was no late-night work session. My heart pounded as I walked back to my car. I called Madison. She answered on the third ring, her voice casual. "Hey babe, what is up?" "Where are you right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm at the office. I told you this client thing is crazy. I probably will not be home until late." "I'm standing outside your office, Madison. It is empty. Everyone left." There was a long pause. I could hear muffled noise in the background. Then she laughed, but it sounded forced. "Oh, I meant I'm working remotely. I'm at a coffee shop near the office because the Wi-Fi is better. Sorry, I should have been more clear." I knew she was lying. I could feel it in my bones, but I didn't push. I did not accuse. I just said okay and told her I would see her at home. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about all the signs I had ignored. The late nights, the phone secrecy, the emotional distance, the text message, the empty office. It was all adding up to a picture I did not want to see. The weeks that followed were torture. I lost weight because I could not eat. I had trouble focusing at work. My coworker Dave noticed something was wrong and asked if I wanted to talk about it. I just shrugged and said I was going through some relationship stuff. He nodded sympathetically and did not push. I kept hoping things would get better. I kept hoping Madison would come back to me, that this was just a rough patch we could work through together. I loved her so much. I did not want to lose her. I kept holding on even as she kept pulling away. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Saturday. I had worked late and came home exhausted. Madison was already gone when I got there, a text on my phone saying she was out with friends. I did not have the energy to feel upset about it. I just heated up some leftover pizza, watched a few episodes of a show I was not really paying attention to, and went to bed. I woke up suddenly at 3 in the morning. My throat was dry and I needed water. I reached over to Madison's side of the bed without thinking, and my hand found cold sheets. She was not there. I sat up and looked around the dark apartment. No sounds, no light from the bathroom, no sign of her anywhere. I grabbed my phone and sent her a text. "Where are you?" "It is 3 a.m. I am worried." I waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, nothing. I called her. The phone rang and rang. When I thought it would go to voicemail, she answered. "What?" Her voice was sharp, annoyed. In the background, I could hear music playing, loud music like a club or a party, and voices, laughter. A man's voice close to the phone saying something I could not make out. "Where are you?" I asked. "Are you okay? It is 3 in the morning." What happened next felt like being hit by a truck. Madison screamed at me, not just raised her voice, screamed. "Oh my God, Peter, you are so clingy. Why do you always have to know where I am every second of the day? Give me some space. I cannot breathe with you constantly checking on me. Stop being so controlling." I sat there in the dark, holding the phone, unable to speak. I had asked one question, one simple question, because I woke up alone at 3 in the morning and I was worried about the woman I loved. And this was her response. In that moment, clarity hit me like ice water. This was not stress. This was not a busy schedule. This was not a rough patch. Madison was with someone else. She had been with someone else for who knows how long. And she was so comfortable in her betrayal that she felt justified in screaming at me for daring to ask where she was. I thought about all the nights I had stayed up waiting for her, all the suspicions I had pushed aside because I did not want to believe the worst. All the times I had tried harder, loved harder, given more of myself, only to be pushed away and made to feel like I was the problem. I took a deep breath. When I spoke, my voice was calm. Surprisingly calm. "Okay then." I hung up the phone. For a few minutes I just sat there in the darkness, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of release. I was done. I was finally done. I got up and pulled my suitcase out of the closet. Methodically, I started packing my clothes, shirts, pants, underwear, socks. I grabbed my laptop, my important documents, my toiletries. I moved quietly, efficiently, like I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. I looked at the photos of us on the wall. Our trip to Michigan, her birthday dinner, the day she moved in. I left them all. I did not want any reminders of what I had lost. Before I left, I grabbed a sticky note from the pad on the kitchen counter, the same pad Madison used to write me love notes. I wrote 4 words: "You wanted space. Here it is, all of it." I placed the note on my pillow. Around 5 in the morning, I heard keys in the door. Madison stumbled in, clearly intoxicated. She did not even glance toward the bedroom. She just collapsed on the couch and passed out within seconds. I stood in the doorway of our room looking at her one last time. This woman I had wanted to marry. This woman I had given everything to. This woman who had torn my heart apart and made me feel crazy for caring. I picked up my suitcase and walked out the door. I did not look back. The sun was just starting to rise as I drove out of Chicago. I had no destination in mind at first. I just knew I needed to get far away. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Unknown numbers, Madison calling from other phones probably. I ignored every single call. After about 30 minutes, I pulled over and blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every social media platform. Then I texted my mom telling her I was okay, but that I was leaving Chicago and would explain everything later. I asked her not to tell anyone where I was going. She agreed without question. She knew me well enough to know I would not be doing this unless I had a very good reason. I drove west. I ended up in Denver, Colorado. I had never been there before, but something about the mountains called to me. I needed to be somewhere completely different, somewhere I could start over without any reminders of the life I was leaving behind. The first few weeks were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and not much else. I would lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. Not just that last phone call, but all the months leading up to it, all the signs I had missed or chosen to ignore. I cried more than I care to admit. Not because I missed Madison specifically, but because I was grieving the future I thought we would have. The house in the suburbs, the dog, the kids, the growing old together. All of it was gone and I was left with nothing but questions and regret. But I did not let myself drown in it. I could not afford to literally or figuratively. I started applying for jobs the second week after I arrived. Within a month, I landed a position at a small tech startup. The pay was decent, and the work was interesting enough to keep my mind occupied. I threw myself into my new job. I was the first one in the office every morning and the last one to leave every night. My boss noticed my dedication and started giving me more responsibilities. I welcomed them. Every task was another hour I did not have to spend alone with my thoughts. My mom called every few days to check on me. She was the only person from my old life I stayed in contact with. She told me Madison had been asking around about me. Apparently, she woke up that Saturday afternoon to find me gone and had been frantically trying to find me ever since. She called my mom multiple times, crying and begging for information. Mom told her nothing. She made her bed, Mom said. Now she can lie in it alone. After about 6 months in Denver, I started to come back to life. I joined a gym and started working out every morning before work. The physical exertion helped clear my head and gave me something positive to focus on. I started reading again. Self-help books, psychology, philosophy. I was trying to understand what had happened and how I could make sure it never happened again. I also started hiking on the weekends. Colorado has some of the most beautiful trails in the country, and I discovered that there is something healing about being surrounded by nature. The mountains did not care about my problems. The rivers kept flowing whether I was happy or sad. There was comfort in that indifference. Through a hiking group, I met a guy named Marcus. He worked at the same startup as me, though we had never really talked before. Turns out, he had moved to Denver 3 years earlier after his own relationship disaster. His wife had cheated on him with his best friend. He came home early from a business trip and found them in his bed. Marcus and I became close friends. He understood what I was going through in a way that most people could not. We would sit on his porch after a hike drinking beers and talking about life. He was the one who helped me see that what happened with Madison was not my fault. "You loved her the way everyone deserves to be loved," he told me once. "She was just too broken to receive it. That is on her, not you." Those words stuck with me. I had spent months wondering what I did wrong. Was I really too clingy, too needy, too much? But the more I reflected, the more I realized that asking your partner where they are at 3 in the morning is not clingy. It is normal. It is what people who love each other do. Madison had twisted my caring into something ugly so she could justify her betrayal. By the end of my second year in Denver, I'd been promoted to technical lead at the startup. The company had grown significantly, and I had grown with it. I bought a small apartment with a view of the Rocky Mountains. Every morning I would drink my coffee on the balcony and watch the sun rise over the peaks. It was peaceful in a way I had never experienced in Chicago. I started dating again slowly and cautiously. I went on a few first dates that did not lead anywhere. I was not looking for anything serious. I was just trying to remember how to connect with people without losing myself in the process. Then I met Harper. She was part of my hiking group, a nurse at a local hospital with kind eyes and an easy laugh. We started talking during a particularly long trail one Saturday, and by the end of the hike I knew I wanted to see her again. Harper was different from Madison in almost every way. She was straightforward and honest. When I asked her questions, she answered them without making me feel like I was interrogating her. When I told her about my past, she listened without judgment and shared her own experiences with vulnerability and openness. We took things slow. I was not ready to rush into anything, and she respected that. We had been seeing each other for about 3 months when everything from my past caught up with me. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop working on some code for a side project. The door opened and I glanced up out of habit. My heart stopped. Madison was standing in the doorway. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She scanned the room until her gaze landed on me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked over to my table. "Peter," her voice cracked. "I finally found you. I've been looking for you for 3 years." I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to get up and leave. Part of me wanted to hear what she had to say. I stayed in my seat and waited. Madison sat down across from me without asking permission. Tears were already forming in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." She told me everything. The truth I had suspected but never confirmed. She had been having an affair with a coworker for about 6 months before I left. He was married and she knew it, but she convinced herself it was different. She convinced herself they had something special. When I disappeared that Saturday morning, she panicked. She called me dozens of times. She went to my office, but I had already resigned via email. She asked my friends, but no one knew where I had gone. She even called my mom repeatedly, but Mom refused to tell her anything. A few weeks after I left, the man she was seeing ended things. His wife had found out and threatened to divorce him and take everything. He chose his family over Madison without a second thought. Madison fell apart after that. She lost her job because she could not focus. She had to move back to Indiana and live with her parents. She went through therapy for depression. She spent 3 years trying to find me, hiring a private investigator, searching social media, reaching out to anyone who might know where I was. "I needed to find you," she said through her tears. "I needed to tell you how sorry I am. I needed to ask if there was any chance we could try again." I sat there listening to her pour out her heart. 3 years ago, this confession would have destroyed me. But sitting there in that coffee shop, I felt something unexpected. Nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge, just a calm acceptance of what was. "Madison," I said slowly, "do you remember what you said to me that night? You called me Clingy because I asked where you were at 3 in the morning. You made me feel like there was something wrong with me for loving you." She nodded, shame written all over her face. "I was not clingy," I continued. "I was caring. I was worried. And you were screaming at me while you were out with another man. Do you understand how that felt?" "I know," she whispered. "I know I hurt you. I was selfish and stupid, and I hate myself for it." "I do not hate you, Madison. I do not have any anger left, but I also do not have any love left. That man who would have done anything for you, who planned to propose to you, who built his whole future around you, he does not exist anymore. I am someone else now, someone who finally knows his worth." She reached across the table to grab my hand. "Please, Peter, just give me a chance to make it right. I have changed. I have grown. I know what I lost." I gently pulled my hand back. "You did not break me, Madison. You broke us. And I spent 3 years rebuilding myself without you. I found a job I love, friends who care about me, a life that makes me happy. I'm even seeing someone who treats me the way I deserve to be treated." Madison flinched at that last part. More tears spilled down her cheeks. "So there is no chance, nothing at all?" I shook my head. "The space you asked for that night, I gave it to you, all of it. And somewhere in that space, I found myself again. I cannot go back to who I was, and I would not want to. I stood up and left money on the table for my coffee. I hope you find peace, Madison. I genuinely do. But that peace is not going to come from me. I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. That evening I drove home as the sun set behind the mountains. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the peaks looked like they were glowing. I pulled over at a lookout point and just sat there for a while, processing everything that had happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Harper. "How was your day? Want to grab dinner?" I smiled and typed back, "Yes, I would love that." As I drove to meet her, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. 3 years ago, I was a broken man fleeing his life in the middle of the night. I had nothing except a suitcase and a shattered heart. I didn't know where I was going or what I would find when I got there. But somewhere along the way, I discovered something important. The worst moments of our lives can become the starting points for something better. If Madison had never betrayed me, I might never have left Chicago. I might never have found this job, these friends, these mountains, this peace. I might have spent my whole life trying to make someone happy who was never going to appreciate it. There are a few lessons I want to share with you from this experience. First, caring about your partner is not clingy. Asking where they are when they disappear at 3 in the morning is not controlling. If someone makes you feel bad for showing love that says everything about them and nothing about you. Second, when a relationship ends, especially because of betrayal, do not waste your energy trying to get revenge or closure from the other person. The best thing you can do is focus on yourself, rebuild, grow, become someone you are proud of. Third, walking away in silence is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. I did not scream at Madison. I did not beg her to stay. I did not try to catch her in her lies. I simply said, "Okay," and left. That silence spoke louder than any argument ever could. Finally, time alone does not heal wounds. You have to actively work on healing yourself. Go to the gym, read books, make new friends, pursue your passions. The pain does not just disappear because the calendar keeps moving. You have to build a new life that the pain cannot reach. Sometimes the best response to someone telling you to give them space is to give them all the space in the world. Pack your bags, walk away with your dignity intact, and never look back. You might be surprised at what you find on the other side. I am sitting on my balcony right now, looking at those mountains I've come to love. Harper is on her way over for dinner. Tomorrow, Marcus and I are planning a hike to a new trail we have been wanting to try. My mom is flying out next month to visit and see my new place. Life is good. Better than good. Life is exactly what it should be. And it all started with a question at 3 in the morning. Have you ever been made to feel like your love was too much? Have you ever walked away from someone who did not deserve you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are not crazy for caring too much. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. I hope you find the courage to walk away from anyone who makes you feel small for having a big heart. You deserve someone who appreciates every bit of love you have to give. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.